It was the winter of 1944. Europe was frozen not just by snow, but by fear. The Second World War had already consumed millions of lives, and yet the end was nowhere in sight. On the Eastern Front, the German Wehrmacht still believed it could hold back the Soviet advance. But something was changing, something invisible, something that did not come from tanks or artillery. It came from the radio. Deep inside the Soviet command structure, far from the front lines, signals officers worked around the clock. Their job was simple in theory, but deadly in impact. Intercept, decode, and respond. Every German transmission was a puzzle. Every Soviet message was a weapon. On a quiet night near the Baltic sector, German communication officers picked up something unusual. At first, it sounded like routine static. Then came a voice, calm, precise, and chillingly confident. A Soviet radio operator had transmitted something that would soon travel, through German command, channels faster than any bullet on the battlefield. What followed was not an attack in the traditional sense. It was psychological warfare at its peak, and it would shake the Wehrmacht to its core. The message began with coordinates, but they made no sense. German intelligence officers stared at the map, confused. The location referred to a supposed Soviet armored concentration, but reconnaissance had shown nothing there. No tanks, no troop movement, nothing. Yet the radio operator repeated it again. Enemy armored formation confirmed. Strength overwhelming. Movement underway. At first, German commanders dismissed it. The Eastern Front was full of false alarms, partisan tricks, and misinformation. But then something strange happened. Within hours, multiple German listening posts began receiving the same transmission on different frequencies. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't interference. It was deliberate. The Wehrmacht command began to panic quietly, not because of what they had seen, but because of what they could not see. If this report was true, an entire Soviet armored force had appeared without warning. If it was false, then someone was controlling German fear itself. Either possibility was dangerous. By dawn, the radio call had reached divisional headquarters. Officers gathered around crackling receivers, replaying the message again and again. Each repetition made it worse. No visuals. No confirmation. Only words. But in war, words can be deadlier than artillery. German field commanders began repositioning units. Anti-tank guns were redeployed. Infantry battalions dug in deeper. Supply lines were rerouted in panic. And all of it was based on a single voice from the radio. Behind the Soviet lines, intelligence specialists had perfected something terrifying. Coordinated deception broadcasting. They were feeding German command false confidence, then stripping it away piece by piece. The goal was not just confusion. It was paralysis. A Wehrmacht officer later described the atmosphere as fighting an enemy that speaks inside your mind, but never shows its face. Just when German commanders thought they had identified the source, the second radio call came. This time the voice was different, slower, heavier, almost deliberate. German command units are advised, withdrawal is impossible. The phrase alone caused tension in multiple headquarters, but it was what came next that changed everything. The operator listed German unit designations. Real ones, exact divisions, exact positions. Someone was watching them. Or worse, someone knew their entire command structure. Panic escalated rapidly. Communications officers scrambled to change frequencies. Encryption codes were updated immediately. But it was too late. The Wehrmacht was no longer just reacting to the battlefield. It was reacting to an unseen intelligence network that seemed to predict its every move. And the radio never stopped. By the third transmission, something broke inside the German command system, not physically, but psychologically. Orders became contradictory. Units received conflicting instructions. Some commanders prepared for a massive Soviet breakthrough that never existed. Others refused to believe any reports at all. The result was chaos. And chaos is fatal in war. Soviet forces nearby observed something unusual. German defensive lines were weakening without a direct attack. Entire sectors were shifting, retreating, or freezing in place. The radio calls had done what artillery sometimes could not. They had disrupted decision-making itself. Even experienced Wehrmacht officers admitted later that they were no longer sure what was real and what was manipulatio.